Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Zoom call on an informative Q&A with regarding the Immaculate Dissection, or ID, courses 1 through 6. We are so excited that you guys are taking the opportunity to listen to what we have to say and what we have to offer you as far as your functional anatomy education. I've gotten some really great questions via email and some comments on social media, some things that need to be addressed. And also, I want you guys to take the opportunity to use your chat box at the very bottom. If you're live on this call, it's at the very bottom of the page. You'll see a little balloon that says chat. If you don't mind typing your question there to avoid some of the feedback, that would be most helpful. We really appreciate it, because on the recording, sometimes there's a pretty good amount of feedback. And so again, just go to the very bottom and enter in a question on chat if I don't cover it. And then I can also unmute you if you need to. You can just chat and say that you want to vocalize your question. And maybe at the end, I can unmute everyone so that you guys can speak.
I love you. American woman.
Again, folks, we're getting a lot of feedback from your computers. So if you don't mind muting your camera, that would be so wonderful. I can't mute everyone. I muted as many people as I could, but it won't let me mute certain people. So please make sure to mute. You can mute yourself by going to the far bottom and to the far left. All right. So what is immaculate dissection? If you've not taken a course with us before, it's an important thing to know kind of what we offer. And I know you can read the website and you can watch some of our YouTube videos, but it's really important that we answer your questions here, and so you'll know what you're signing up for. I'm Dr. Kathy Dooley. I am your lead instructor, your content generator, and your co-founder. Danny and Anna cannot be here today with us, but I'll be sending them the recording so that they can cover anything that they need to as far as the feedback on this call. And I'm happy to speak on their behalf as they are my business partners and co-founders. I think I've got most of it covered as far as what they would also describe to you. But if I don't, we can make sure to answer any of your questions on our Immaculate Dissection Instagram, also our Immaculate Dissection Facebook page. And of course, you're always welcome to email us at immaculateDissection@gmail.com or drkathydooley@gmail.com. So we got together, the three of us, it was 6 years ago now, and we decided that we were going to start a seminar series based upon functional anatomy. We found that anatomy was something that was missing very much from a lot of education. And so we decided to create a seminar series based upon anatomic education. I was teaching for a seminar series named Neurokinetic Therapy, and I was noticing across 4 continents for which I was teaching that people had a massive disparity in their anatomic knowledge, not from like origin, insertion, innervation, blood supply, but how it applied to a clinical assessment process or how it applied to a client in front of us. And that was a really crucial piece in trying to understand what we could offer the public, and offering the public something that involved being able to really educate people on how to use anatomy in a functional learning experience was as a crucial piece of what we do. So at an Immaculate Dissection course, you show up and you can show up with no knowledge or already have a ton of knowledge as far as anatomy, and still come from the seminar learning some completely new way to assess and correct anatomy. We teach anatomy through functional movement assessment. We actually put people through movement, and we also put them through palpations, which some people are good at, some people are not. And we teach a new way to palpate for dysfunctional tightness. And we use that dysfunctional tightness to show us that there may be areas of tissues that are what we call locked short or locked longs, people that are kind of stuck in a concentric action. And then some people are stuck in an eccentric action between structures, typically that are antagonistic. And we start to look and analyze how this might affect the person's human movement. And it shows up with certain things that involve tightness, and then also certain clinical pearls associated with the anatomy. And if you don't know the anatomy as well as you could, these clinical pearls are an essential piece of knowing why to go where you're going. The functional assessments that we do are basically, we call them flow charts. And so for ID 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6, we do these assessment flow charts where you follow a standard operating system and to get to where you want to go with your palpations. We know how very overwhelming anatomy can be. And so if anatomy is too overwhelming, a lot of people won't learn it, and then they'll kind of fall back on things that have been parroted to them and they won't really try to search for a new knowledge base and then apply their functional anatomy knowledge because they just give up, frankly. And I saw that happen, on four continents, where people were like, well, oh, I know, this muscle does this action, but how would I know if it's dysfunctional in front of me, and how would I know to give a corrective strategy for it? And so we think that we have this down. We have a really nice standard operating system. And a lot of people come to ID leaving saying, oh my gosh, I know how to start with my patients. And at each one of the ID courses, we point out to you that the four dreaded words of any student in anatomy is, where do I start? And our reply is, at the flow chart. And so we like to give you a very nice standard operating system that you go home with on Monday, let's say, after a weekend course, and know exactly how to apply the knowledge that's put in front of you. Well, how do we do this? Well, we do this through a flow chart and a movement assessment flow chart, and then also palpations with clinical pearls. And then we also give you visual media, which is a really important piece. We do things like body painting, and this is Danny's art that's put into a compression sleeve. It's a product we'll have available hopefully sooner rather than later when the factories are up and running again. And what we do is we teach the anatomy as much as we can on the person, and we teach people how to really look at surface anatomy and things called pure patch palpations, where we look to see areas where you can feel a structure's dysfunctional tightness and then know that, oh, this is a structure I really need to assess and possibly give a correction for. We also do visual dissections, and we call ourselves immaculate dissection because it's much better than actually in the lab. Immaculate dissection is a lab experience brought to life. And if you've ever been in a lab, they're cadavers, they don't move, hopefully. So if you have a cadaver patient, they're quite stiff, whether it's fresh tissue or fixation procedures, and you really can't. You can get an appreciation for depth of tissues possibly and orientation of tissues, but you can't really get an understanding necessarily of how it applies to the clinical assessment process. And so what Danny has done for us, and Anna as well, is put together these amazing pieces of visual media with our manual, with dissections. And we actually show you, like, this is our rectus sheath dissection, where we show you dissections based upon our assessments so that people can get a really nice visual cortical experience of how to put it into their patient. And then as you understand how things visually are, depth level, relationship patterns, you then can start to say, oh, I can take the surface anatomy and use my standard operating system, my flow chart, to get to how I would approach this patient clinically. And whether it's a client or someone you're training. And what it does is it provides an environment for you to be able to give very specific homework to the specific client and have immediate results happen right in front of you. And we are very results oriented in ID. We want someone to be able to leave with a standard operating system, to leave with a knowledge base, and then be able to say, okay, this person's in front of me. I'm going to take anybody in front of me and apply my standard operating process to the respective area that I've learned, and know where to start and know what to give them as far as some corrective strategy. We call these corrective strategies pendulums and neural primes. And a pendulum for us is a movement back and forth, not a stretch, not an activation, not a release. What these are is the studying of stability motor control problems and learning how things time together. This is mostly proprioceptively mediated and very much oriented by the cerebellum and the parietal lobe. So we're basically trying to coach someone through a movement that can be very small range, or it can be a range that they can tolerate. And it's a controlled range. And that's why it's called a pendulum, where you meet someone where they're at and take them where they're not. And this is based upon our clinical pearls, based upon our tightness palpation, based upon our flow chart. And what you end up doing is coaching someone into, basically you have to meet them in their dysfunction, and then to take them where they're not, to coach their system to understand how to leave the dysfunction. And a lot of people don't understand that the tightness is a necessity. Tightness, if someone has grown tightness, they're doing it because they have to. It's an absolute necessity for the patient. And if you just stretch it out, rub it out, adjust it out, if you're a chiropractor like myself, then you may be missing the mark a little bit. You may not be giving them exactly what they need to keep themselves less tight. And so instead of just moving to a stretch, you move to an assessment process of what is tight. And that we do that through pendulums and through neural primes to help stabilize the system. And what you find is this incredible experience happens for the patient where not only do they become very empowered because they understand what is actually happening and why they're getting tight all the time, why they're not necessarily stretch deficient, but why and how they're able to correct it for themselves. It makes them incredibly self-sufficient along with being self-empowered. And for you, what it gives you is less confusion, knowing where to start with your patient, knowing how to truncate the total number of visits possible that you see a patient for a particular problem, and then learning how to integrate a strength skill set to pile on top of that stability motor control problem. And so we provide on our second day strength exercises that we can build on top of stability. So what is each immaculate dissection feature? Immaculate dissection 1, these are parts and not levels. You can take them in any order. ID 1 is core concepts, and core concepts teaches breathing mechanisms for intrinsic core stabilization. We talk about what core stability is. We talk about intra-abdominal pressure and how it protects the center of mass and creates lumbopelvic stability to be able to take force transfer out to the limbs. And we spend a 15-hour process of teaching what the intrinsic core muscles do, how to assess them through what we call the ID Core 4 assessments. And we do this through supine 90-90, crocodile breathing, cat-camel assessments, and then eventually pelvic floor assessments. And then on the second day, we add strength on top of a stable platform. And what's so surprising at an ID1 seminar is people that come in with a lot of core knowledge, they start to open up their mind to the fact they may be missing some pieces, like the separation between intrinsic and extrinsic core, what that anatomically means, how something stabilizes through breathing, how something stabilizes through movement strategy. And it's a very, very popular course. You do not have to start with ID1, but a lot of people do enjoy taking ID1 because it is the root of our stabilization system around our center of mass, which is between L4 and S1. And what's really fun is that you can come and experience it. And then if you take ID1, let's say last out of all of the IDs, you're like, oh man, all of the immaculate dissections 2 through 6 send us back to the core. We always talk about how important a core integration is with all things. So don't feel obligated to take ID1 before you take anything else. But when you do take it, it certainly does tie the pieces together of the rest of the levels. ID2 is lower extremity concepts, and it's our largest manual because it has the most amount of structures. And so the lower extremity has so many structures. We teach the importance of the tripod of the foot, which is 3 major formations of the longitudinal arches and the transverse arch, to be able to connect to 3 points on the foot, and how that helps us to control not only our center of mass, but our femoral centration. And if you don't know what femoral centration is, you're going to get a real hoot out of hearing Anna and I demonstrate the difference between force generation and femoral centration. Femoral centration being the stability of the femoral head under the acetabulum and its reactivity to environment, which is very different than force generation, which is power. A lot of people don't know the difference between that. So ID2 certainly does teach you how to separate your knowledge between force generation and joint centration. Lower extremity analysis, we keep it very easy. We actually make it extremely simple. And then we only have a handful of pendulums that actually go for the entire lower extremity. So what it does is it takes the overwhelming nature out of the lower extremity anatomy learning. And again, where do I start? At the flow chart. So we immediately put you into, you have to prioritize this. And this is what we're assessing. Don't let yourself get distracted. Because we see a lot of people get distracted by the complexity of human gait, which is an inevitable conversation in ID2. And we try to keep that really, really simple and break down gait into this one little piece of, oh, I need to assess this piece because it affects all parts of gait. And so we've gotten enormous success from our own clinical practices with ID, so much so that our teaching team is exponentially grown, especially due to ID 1 and 2. We're upright. You have to learn how to assess the lower extremity. It's a really important piece because we're bipeds. And again, we do have pendulums for these. We have neural primes and stability motor control assessments and correctives for these. And then we build strength on top of it on the last day. We teach the very important pieces of the get up from the supine 90-90 position into the standing position. And we put enormous emphasis on the lunge, which is under assessed and under taught and largely avoided by people who can't do it because they have a lower extremity problem. So an important part of our educational process in ID2 is going through how to get someone up from a lane to a standing position safely. ID3 is upper extremity concepts. ID3 covers upper extremity analysis and our big prioritization over 3 major joints out of the 6 functional joints of the shoulder, which include sternoclavicular, acromioclavicular, and the scapulothoracic joint, which we abbreviate SCACST joints. And so we teach you again, where do I start? At the flow chart. We teach you a movement flow to be able to understand the prioritization, so you know exactly where to start on your patient that has an upper extremity chief complaint. And again, tying the core in with everything like we do in 1 and 2. Again, we have more pendulums to teach you, one chief pendulum for the entire upper extremity. So if you learn one, you've got it all down. And then we teach you other small pendulums that go through the motor control training of each structure. We have enormous clinical pearls with the upper extremity, and it's the first time we get to focus a lot on grip, which is something that we teach in ID3 and 4 extensively. And in ID3, it's mostly talking about a couple of different ways our grip that can be tested and affected. And it's a very, very helpful anatomic piece of clinical auditing process that you can utilize and really help you to understand the upper extremity much better. Extremely popular course, ID3, because I think that people think that shoulder is so confusing, and there's so many people with elbow problems and wrist problems, and they're like, look at the amount of muscles that are around and control the wrist, and they're like, oh my god, like 17 muscles in the forearm, and they freak out about it. And we just try to take that freak out and say, look, follow your standard operating system, follow your flow chart with ID, and then learn how to ask the right questions. And again, we're covering pure patch palpations again, how to find pieces of the tissue that are tight and dysfunctional, and look for antagonistic motion between what we call reciprocal inhibition, right? The neurological concept of being locked long or locked short, not being able to move freely through a range because there's parking brakes on the system of stability motor control. For ID4 I would consider it a dense course just because a lot of people, they've skipped a lot of their study here. I know that this is true because it was true for me. I went to chiropractic school and I thought that I would become like a master of head and neck, and because I had to adjust it, and, it's an important piece. But I don't really feel like the curriculum had time permitted for me to really study this at the depth that I needed to learn it. And so I made it my thesis. So ID4 is neck, jaw, hand, and grip concepts. And ID4 features analysis of the neck, a really good standard operating process flow chart for that, as well as the jaw, and as well as hyoid, which is included in neck. And then we also look at grip very closely and how the grip can be affected by problems here. And we also want to point out to people when there's an absence of grip loss, what that would mean. And our analysis of the jaw has become very popular, the hyoid very popular. The hyoid is an understudied rehabilitative element and very important for the swallowing mechanism, the speaking mechanism, the stabilization of the scapula and the sternum, as well as the jaw. So very, very important to learn. Although the material may be a little bit more dense because of there's a small packed area with so much important things. Again, we have a really, really nice flow chart and really great clinical pearls and the functional assessments that are just cannot be beat to help you know where to start with your client. And we've gotten some just wonderful feedback on how people can immediately put it into practice. And as long as they're studying and really, studying their patients and also studying the material, they get better and better the more that they study. And that is something that's really important to us, to be able to give you quality information that is results oriented. We want results and we want them to be consistent for you. ID5, we just premiered last year, last December. And it's the peripheral nerve entrapment concepts. We were just going to end everything with ID 1 and 4, like 1 through 4. We couldn't because we got so many requests from our idealists, as we call them, to do a nerve course. And I'm a real neuro nerd, so I was so excited to help build this course with Anna and Danny. The nerve course covers pendulums, like neural flosses. And it covers how you would do a neurological exam, how you would differentiate sclerotome pain from dermatome, from myotome, from radiculopathy versus peripheral nerve entrapment. And a lot of people have not had extensive education on that. Like chiropractors are educated on that very, very well. I think PTs sometimes are as well. We had a couple PAs that took the course and they also were educated on it, but we all agreed that we had education on it. We not enough, not enough refresher. So we teach you how to do a really quick cranial nerve exam, how to do these quick little dances, like for myotome, dermatome, peripheral nerve, sclerotome. That way you can really start to understand when a patient presents to you with particular clinical pearls, particular presentations, that it leads you right to where you want to go anatomically. And the ID team has had just amazing success with our NeuroFloss pendulums. So we hope that you guys will bite that bullet and study the nerves and how to differentiate radiculopathy from sclerotogenous pain, from peripheral nerve pain, and also visceral pain, which is an important piece to study as well. And then last but not least, ID6 is our movement assessment for the subsystems. Andrew Valimi coined the 5 movement subsystems with his research. And so we just take it to the next level, and we look at perturbation and how you can look at a predicted response from a patient based upon these 5 subsystems. And then you can start to, again, have a standard operating process, but then also look at what we call primary antagonist, secondary antagonist, primary synergist, secondary synergist, and look at this antagonistic relationship as a prime focus on how a structure can affect an entire movement subsystem. And so we premiered that. We beta tested it 3 times in 2019, and then we premiered it for the first time recently in New York, and it was very successful. People loved it. We had a lot of feedback that it was a lot of people's favorite. So excited that people loved it. And several of the people that took ID6 had taken 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And there was a handful of people that had taken all of them, and they loved how each one fed into the previous course, or how they're like, oh, I learned something in 6 and that made me think of 1 again. And 1 made me think of 6 again. And then, oh, I missed something in 2 and I picked it up in 6. Or, oh my God, I took 6 and now I really want to take 3 to understand the shoulder better. And so they're parts, they're pieces, and not separate levels. They're parts. And so we hope that you will gravitate towards a part, and then eventually, of course, take everything. I mean, we're biased in that we created 6 for you because we feel like there's 6 essential pieces. And the wonderful thing I think that we get a ton of feedback about that's very positive is our courses are recorded and consistently updated. We also have a really nice files section and support forums so that we can update the material for you all the time. If you took the course in the beginning stages, like in 2014, 15, now it's very evolved because we listen to our patrons, we listen to our idealists and ask them, what do you need and what are we doing that is not as effective, and what can we give you that we're not giving you? And we really listen to you and try to do our best to integrate what you guys need as far as movement assessment and palpations. And it's I think our course has been so successful and has grown so much because we listen to you and what you need. And I think that that's an important piece. With the entire seminar being recorded, people can just come to the seminar and enjoy. They can come and be present, and we make everybody work in partners or groups of 3 so they can assess someone while they're there and put their skills immediately into point. It's not just 15 hours of lecture. That's not what we're about. We do have a lecture component, but it's a completely symbiotic, integrative type of learning process where we want it to be interactive. We want you to be able to immediately start to apply your skills. And we also understand the time limitation. 15 hours of an entire core, 15 hours of the entire upper extremity is not enough. So we know you need to study. So we give you the Vimeos as part of your tuition. You can go to them anytime you want after the course is done, watch and learn. And when we update the Vimeos, you get an update on our forum page on Facebook, and you can go in there and see the update. So if we have more case studies, which people love, or we add in new assessment process, which might help, it'll all be in the Vimeos for you. And when you invest into your tuition that's available to you after you invest. So wonderful thing. I think that people really give us a lot of positive feedback about. So if you decide to bite the bullet and take an ID course, the courses domestically are 500 US early bird and 600 US late bird. Overseas, the price goes up 100 USD. So it's 600 for a course early bird and 700 late bird. We also really appreciate our family and want you to take all the levels. So we let you sign up for 2 courses at the same time with a discount. So domestically, if you sign up for 2 courses together, we'll give you an extra $100 off. That's on top of the early bird. And that's the Save One coupon, SAVE1 coupon. So if you ever sign up for 2 courses, then you can use that coupon. You cannot use it with 1 course. Sorry. We already are trying to keep the price so low. Remember, Anna and Danny and I have to travel to you. So we can't let it, be rock bottom. We do have to charge something. So, but we want to keep the price as low for you as we can. For the overseas courses, it's SAVE2 is the coupon that we use, so that you can save $200 on 2 courses, because the courses are more expensive for our travel expenses. So we definitely want to be able to offer you guys a little bit extra, since you do have to pay extra to take it internationally. And so all of this information is on IMMACULATEDissection.com under every single course page and on every sign up page. So in case you miss it, it's also on extensive Immaculate Dissection Instagram posts, as well as on our Facebook page. So all that information is there. But if you go to IMMACULATEDissection.com, those details are all there on how you would use a payment plan also and use our coupons. The payment plan has been really successful. If you use the coupon all caps payment, all caps plan, you can actually put 50% down on your courses, which means if you want to take a domestic course for $500, but you don't have $500 right now, you could put $250 down as like a non-refundable deposit. And you can say, okay, look, I don't have all the money right now, but I want to lock in my early bird special because I don't want to pay $600 for the course. I want to pay $500 for the course. So we give you a payment plan. That was an idea given to us by the amazing Holly Lynch in New Zealand. And she was like, yeah, I don't always have $500 up front. And I really want to be able to motivate myself to save for the course. And so we really took her suggestion seriously. And it's been massively helpful to people. I love you guys for giving us these great ideas, because I just wouldn't have thought about it before. And it was a simple coupon that Anna made. And Anna is this incredible administrator. She will put your suggestions to work. And she did. And it's helped so many people be able to commit to a course and then also to save up for it, which is so great that people are willing to kind of save up to come learn with us. And so we want to pay you back for your dedication and loyalty with a little bit of help, a little bit of discounts here and there, and a little bit of a payment plan. Right now, we're not offering continuing education through any governing bodies. We've tried several governing bodies, and we're too small of an operation right now to really go into operations for that. But I will give you a piece of advice, which works for me in my chiropractic field in the state of New York. To petition your board. We'll provide you with course objectives. We'll provide you with my CV. I have 17 years of teaching experience. Like it's not hard for you to get approved for your continuing education, most likely, with my CV intact. I also teach for multiple medical institutions, so people will trust me as your educator. And Anna as well, she teaches for multiple medical schools as well. So it's important that we provide you with a CV, we provide you with course objectives, we can of course provide you with certificate of attendance, and hopefully you can petition your board to get that credit. I know I can petition it for 12 credit hours for every 3 years, so just teaching it. So we would love to help you with that process. So if you need certificate of attendance, or you need any of those to be able to petition your board for continuing education credits, you can do that. And we also have the flow charts as assessment checks. So we have things that you can send into your board for credit. Until we become a bigger operation, we can only offer that to you, but we hope that you will petition your board. And Anna and I do it with great success. So you just have to usually fill out a piece of paper and maybe make a phone call, which I know you're already so busy and probably want one less thing to do, but it's a way for you to get credit for your ID education. So might be really, really smart to do that. So I think I covered most of the things that I want to say. And now I want you to use your chat box for the people. There's several people on here live. I'm just so overwhelmed and happy by you guys taking the time during a pandemic to tune into us and be so interested. It's awesome. And I want to be able to answer any direct questions for you. under the chat box. I think I covered all the questions that were asked to me by email, and maybe you guys can stimulate some extra thoughts. So I'll just pause the video as you guys write some questions in. Camilla just gave us a great just thank you for ID 1 and 2, and thank you guys so much. We really think that ID courses have grown and are growing into something really great. And so Camilla, thank you for trusting us with your ID 1 and 2 education. That's such a huge deal. So thank you. So one of the questions I got, a really great question. Thank you so much, Charlene. She asked if there was only one ID course a year in the domestic area of the United States. No, there are multiple cities, and we open up new ones consistently. So you want to go to IMMACULATEDissection.com, and then you'll see an events page. On the very, very first page, it's the 2020 World Tour locations. And we have one of each level 1 through 6 in New York City per year. So if you want to take levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you can come to New York and take each level in New York once a year. But the various cities that we have, like Toronto, Phoenix, Chicago, we go to various areas, Boston. And so you can pick up a level at another city. Toronto also has multiple ones, Vancouver, California, we go there as well. And we're just opening up new cities all the time. So I think we're coming to for the first time this year for a core to Seattle, which will be exciting. So if you look on the events page, that 2020 calendar is up, and then we'll start adding the 2021 calendar as we start to secure cities. So great question. Looking for more, folks, if you want to use your chat box. We had a message from Ivan. Awesome. Hi, Ivan. He's amazing. Ivan and the whole crew in Hong Kong, Sammy, all the rest of them. Oh my gosh, Kieran, they took ID 1, 2, 3, 4, all within like 2 weeks of each other. They weren't at all freaked out by it. They just went, they just did it. And they saved a ton of cash by doing the early bird special as well as the Save 2 coupon. And they knew that everything was recorded for them and that they can go back and watch it as many times as they wanted, but they just wanted to be present while we were there. And so, man, there are some sharp cookies in Hong Kong too. I was so impressed to see the amazing dedication of the students in Hong Kong and Taiwan and Japan. Just like, wow. But thank you, Ivan, for trusting us with your education. Just so glad that you enjoyed it and found it useful. Oh, hello, everyone. Just a really, really great question from Anya. She's asking if London is still happening in May 2020. So far, so good. We're not canceling anything yet. And wanted to let you guys know, I know that everyone's concerned with the pandemic and they're like, well, what am I going to do about ID? And just know that we are going to be offering teleconferencing options. And we also will be offering some options on accessing our online materials. We just, have to get all of our ducks in a row. And so sorry, just give us a little bit of time. And if you want to see any updates on what we're going to be offering, please come to our Instagram and please come to the Immaculate Dissection Facebook page. And you can also look at my Facebook page as well, where I'll be keeping everybody posted on important pieces of what we're going to be doing for everybody in the future. When it comes to something you're already signed up for, if you're worried about the pandemic, we will be emailing all the attendees to keep you posted. So please, if you don't mind saving Anna about 500 emails or myself 500 emails, we will email you with any updates. Right now, we don't really have any. So just please be patient. We did have to reschedule Australia because we couldn't come so without quarantine. So we did reschedule Australia, Sydney and Melbourne cities for August. So we will make sure that you get ID, okay? But we so appreciate your patience with us right now. With everything changing by the minute, we will get you ID material, okay? We're gonna get it to you. We just have to figure out the best way to make it copacetic and make it a great learning experience for you. We don't want you to get anything but the best from us. We had a great question from Karina asking about acupuncture. Anna is a trained acupuncturist. I actually met Anna in acupuncture school, so it's impossible for us to not talk about acupoints. It's absolutely mentioned in Immaculate Dissection courses, although we don't have a specific Immaculate Dissection acupuncture course just yet. We very consistently talk about acupoints and how they relate to our pure patch palpations and our clinical findings. You'll find that Dr. Anna's knowledge on acupuncture is second to none. So we really like to mention acupoints and their relevance to neurovascular structures and pure patch palpation points. We certainly appreciate the overwhelming support, folks. One of the questions that was brought up again, I think by Judy, which we discussed earlier, but I'll discuss again, was the concept of being locked long and locked short. We talk about this a lot in immaculate dissection, where a structure is locked if it's tight and non-responsive, like it can't move into its full range. And so if something's locked short, it has trouble being able to elongate. It's locked into its short kind of purgatory is what we call it. And a structure could be locked long, which is not able to go into its short position and kind of locked in an elongated position. And what that basically means to us is that the person can't dynamically move through space with stability motor control. And, very important that we educate people through our assessment process of palpation and our movement assessment when things are locked short and locked long. It's usually between antagonists. So hopefully you'll hear that twice on the video recording. So you get to hear it twice, and sometimes it takes 7 times. So we repeat things very, very much at ID courses. So keep the questions coming. Oh, just got a great question. Who is this? Amazing question. It says iPhone. Shoot, I don't know who it is. But thank you, iPhone, for your great question about pendulums. Someone asked, excited to see a pendulum. So do you want to see one? Can we just do one together? Okay. So let's say I've done my flow chart with ID, and I've looked at my clinical pearls, and I found that the person has trouble with their scalings. I've done my grip test, and I found my grip findings that are consistent with ID clinical pearls, and I want to do a pendulum for, let's say, the middle scaling. And so let's all do it together. Drop what you're doing for a second and stop typing, stop looking at your phone. Hopefully you're looking here, but and let's say that we found it on their left side. So we found on our pure patch palpation, we found a really tight spot on the scaling, and we figured out that it was locked short. So in ID, we meet someone where they're at and take them where they're not. So we have to meet them in their short position. We do this because neurologically, we don't want to just push them away from what they normally know. We have to meet people where they're at in order to take them where they're not neurologically. So if you find, if you just come to your master process, and then you come slide down, that's going to be C1, and then slide down one more second, that's C2. And so we're just going to be bending on a fulcrum at C2. We'll teach you the reasons why when you take ID4. But as you bend over, let's just go to the left, try to bend your upper cervical area over to C2, and then start to just flex the C2 area down towards your left shoulder. And that's meeting someone where they're at, okay? And then a pendulum to take them where they're not. It's not stretch or push, right? But now we're going to go eccentric. Now we're going to gently go over to the other side at C2. And then we're going to coach them to extend up. To get the prevertebral fascia, I'm going to look real attractive here. So join me. Bottom lip over top lip. And that gets the prevertebral fascia that kind of anchors to the clavicle and goes into the axilla, but covers the scalenes. So in a pendulum, we meet someone where they're at, and then take them where they're not. And it's these gentle motions that help someone lose their dysfunctional tightness, and then that can restore better stability motor control. It's not massive stretches, which actually can be really not good for someone who's locked long or even locked short. We want to gently move someone. And I'll admit that this concept came from me watching my parents' grandfather clocks when I was a kid. During meditation, I was trying to figure out what can I best do, because I don't always think that rubbing things out is smart. I don't also think that stretching them all the time is smart. What does the research say? The research says that things like proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation is the most effective way to quickly decrease tension, right? The research is astounding for PNF, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. And what's the concept of that? It's to shorten something then lengthen it, right? And it's to do it gently. And what that does is it coaches the tissue to leave its tension. And I thought of that because I did research on active release technique when I was in chiropractic school. I was part of a research project for measuring PNF versus ART, and nothing against ART, but PNF performed better than ART. And the difference was like just meeting someone where they're at and then taking them where they're not, and then respecting the tension lines. It was just a little bit better with PNF with like a little bit of a sustained hold, and then moving somebody out and then and being able to move them through space. And so that concept, along with, trying to meet someone where they're at neurologically and take them where they're not, sometimes it's reverse PNF. They're elongated, they're locked long, so I have to meet them there and then take them into a short position. So it's not always just, the PNF process. And so I'm like, what do we call this? What's the best way to learn anatomy? It's not through just a chart. It's through pendulum, it's through movement, experience, and to let yourself leave your dysfunction behind through coaching the neurological system how to change. We all know that neuroplasticity is at the forefront of neurological research. Well, how do we change someone? Well, we meet them where they're at and then take them where they're not. And that is what a pendulum is. And if you study a pendulum, just watch a grandfather clock, watch the pendulum move back and forth. It never goes in one direction more than the other. And so that's how I think that our pendulums are a little bit better than PNF, just a little bit better than PNF, because they're meeting someone where they're at and taking them where they're not in an equal and opposite reaction. And that's how you train antagonists to be more copacetic. And that's how you help someone with a stability motor control problem. So we use pendulums throughout. It's a big part of our anatomic education with ID. And along with the amazing art from Danny, the incredible functional movement assessments, and also revisiting the basics. I think that Immaculate Dissection, I mean, I'm biased, but I think it's the best anatomy course out there. I really do. We put everything into it to make sure that it is for you. And the pendulums are a big part of it. Someone asked, Charlene, you asked great questions. Congrats on your NKT certification, by the way. She asked if the pendulum is an assessment or a correction. Love that question. Yes, and yes. We do a movement assessment that's not a pendulum, but then of course, like any good test, what you'll find is that the assessment becomes the correction. So although our pendulums are not an assessment process, we have a separate assessment process for that. I can understand why you would ask that. And yes, they do have a fluidity between them. I don't see any new questions. We still have some time though, so I don't want to cut you short. We still have 17 minutes on the clock. So if anybody has, if this discussion has stimulated a question, please do not hesitate to ask. Just go to the very bottom. I saw some new people come in. So hello, come to the bottom where it says chat, and then just type in your question there. And I'd love to answer any questions that you have. Okay, well, I don't see any new questions coming up, and I think that we covered everything that was sent to me and everything that was asked by you guys. Maybe you'll go back and watch this recording and get a new stimulated thought. And so if that happens, feel free to email me. As you guys probably guessed, I have a little bit more time than usual because of the pandemic, which I'm really enjoying because I'm getting to answer more of your emails and figure out what you guys need. So it's really, really, I'm fascinated by you guys, that you are just interested in Immaculate Dissection, that you wanted to learn more. And we will be having some fun online educational opportunities. I'm sure the people that already know about ID and have taken ID, you guys have study groups. And if you've not already looked at those, they're under a file section of each of our ID pages. And guys, you can't join our ID pages unless you've taken our coursework. So sorry about that, but you wouldn't understand the questions that are being asked because you haven't taken the courses. So it's very important that you actually invest in our courses before you access our forums. But for the people that have, under the file section is a bunch of study groups available. We keep the cost extremely cheap. They're $20 US a piece. They have full write-ups with each of them, full hour. It's usually 45 minutes to an hour of video, and just fantastic learning opportunities. And don't forget, you have your Vimeos. It's a great time to study. I'm really taking this this unexpected sabbatical to ask a ton of great questions of myself and study. And I cannot tell you how many ideas I've had in just 1 week of having a lesser patient load and not being able to travel for the courses that I teach. It's been really, really fun to learn again. I also want to give like a shout out to our amazing teaching team members all across the world who have really kept the study groups going. And gosh, Dr. Monica Chutta and Dr. Lisa Burnfield in Toronto are doing like an online version of their study group, which is so cool. And we're just so glad that you guys are continuing to study. If you are interested in doing some, more of these Q&As, or you have particular topics you want me to hit, don't hesitate. I also want to give an encouragement for you guys. If you are interested in pelvic floor, we have a course that's already recorded. It's a 4-hour course called Anatomy Angel, Pelvic Floor Health. And so if you want to, study pelvic floor, it's a $200 USD class, and I can send you information on that along with the link to this. if you're interested. And it's the PDF and the entire course is recorded. So it's incredible. It's one of our online offerings. It's not ID per se, but it's me, your ID, the instructor, talking about all the elements of pelvic floor. The anatomy, of course, is there, but also the neuroanatomy and blood, which is not talked about enough. Fascial connections, of course, but big discussions on neurotransmitters as well and hormones. So I think you guys would really like it. So I'll send you, and when I send you guys the link to this recording, I'll also send you some information on how you sign up for pelvic floor, the anatomy course, if you would like that. If you have not emailed me already to get this copy of this recording, you might want to, just in case you want to review back anything that we discussed. And that you can email me at drkathydooley@gmail.com, drkathydooley@gmail.com. You can PM me on Facebook or Instagram, but I'm just going to give you my email address again because it's so hard to organize those as far as who I've sent to and who I haven't. But I have really amazing Gmail organization of it. So just try to send me a Gmail if you can, and I'll get everything to you that you need as far as this link to this talk, as well as some information on some of our online stuff. Ivan, your question is a content-specific question that's not really appropriate for this, but you asked about ID pendulums and kneeling and shifting weight from big toe. I think that you're thinking of the iliacus pendulum, so you'll want to go back and watch the iliacus videos. Okay, so I think that we covered everything, and time is a ticking. And so what you want to do, if you haven't already, is email me, drkathydooley@gmail.com, so I can send you this recording if you want. If you don't want it, that's totally cool. If you want it to be just live, that's great too. And I would love to stay in touch with you guys to be able to get you this link, and then I'll also send you some info on the Anatomy Angel Pelvic Floor Health course. Wanted to let you know that with my free time, I'm building the vestibular course that you guys asked for. So pretty excited to premiere that for you. Probably be sooner rather than later if we're in quarantine for a while. So I'm hard at work building that vestibular course for you, which will feature vestibular assessment, correction strategies. We'll talk about concussion. We'll talk about veneers, migraine. Some really cool stuff will be in the vestibular course. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. I love talking equilibrium, and I've had a lot of success myself with equilibrium training, and that's the course where we'll also talk a lot about eye movement. So if you feel like you've not gotten enough talk about eye movement and vestibular apparatus, then it's coming to you with an Anatomy Angel. It will not be an ID course. It'll be an Anatomy Angel course. It'll be a 4-hour course. And that one will be available online and in person, but the online access is not dependent upon the in-person access. That's true for all Anatomy Angel courses. So as far as ID courses, I'm getting a lot of questions are, can we get early access? Can we get early access? And again, I'm going to tell you to stay in touch with Instagram and stay in touch with our Immaculate Dissection website, as well as our Facebook page to see if there's any updates in the next several weeks on teleconferencing or any, we have to do a lot of thinking about how we're going to do that and how we're going to offer that. So stay tuned to us, and check your Facebook. If you don't already or are not friends with me on Facebook because you hit the limit, just follow me so you get the most up-to-date information, and then follow Instagram. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook. Great. I think that we covered everything. So thank you guys so much. The response to this has been so wonderful. Thank you for not forgetting about us. Thank you for and trusting us with your education. There are so many courses out there, and it's my honor and privilege, as well as Anna and Danny's, to dedicate so much time and effort into your educational process. If we can do anything for you, if some things are missing, let us know so that we can update them for you. And thank you so much for joining the call. We'll see you hopefully at an ID course soon.